Nantiya is N-A-N-T-I-Y-A. Ruan is R as in Roger, U-A as in Nancy.
And you are?
I'm a professor of the practice of law at the University of Denver Stern College of Law.
What, you know, you guys have been working on this study for a while. What's sort of the overwhelming conclusion that you want people to know about?
Sure. That the state of Colorado and its many cities have actually taken the time to increase criminalization of homelessness instead of putting those resources that could be used in a better way. What my students did is they took a look at all of the municipal codes in the 76 most populous cities in Colorado, and they identified 351 ordinances that criminalize homelessness. From that, we did open records requests to 23 cities in order to get the data to figure out, are these ordinances just on the books or are they being actually enforced? What they found is that in a sort of a staggering rate, the cities are enforcing these ordinances, and the cost to the cities for criminalizing homelessness and to homeless people themselves in terms of the cost of that is quite high.
What kinds of ordinances are we talking about?
We're talking about ordinances like sitting and lying in public places, trespass, camping bans, panhandling, and different sanitation in terms of urination and defecation in public places, all ordinances that criminalize behavior that is necessary for people to live on the streets.
Haven't there been some recent Supreme Court rulings, and I mean some of the cities I know in Denver particularly have changed some of that recently, haven't they?
Well, what happened was that a district court in the United States District Court for the District of Colorado, Judge Arguello, did find that when aggressive panhandling ordinance was unconstitutional and struck that ordinance down. Based on that, other cities have stopped their enforcement of their aggressive panhandling. But the problem is that there are other panhandling that are not specific to aggressive panhandling. Aggressive panhandling is covered actually in assault and other types of ordinances. It's not necessary. But the panhandling ordinance could be written in a variety of different ways that aren't actually going to trigger the same type of review that judge did. So our argument is that there needs to be a statewide right for homeless people in order to not be discriminated against and harassed on the streets.
Let me just a couple more questions. What about, you guys are not saying that these behaviors should be ignored, right? You're just saying that
They should not be criminalized.
you're saying the money that we're spending to criminalize them.
Correct.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So what we found is that based on 6 cities, 14 ordinances over a 5-year period, those cities spent over $5 million criminalizing these behaviors, when instead they could be used to help the people that are necessary for the life behaviors that need to occur when you're on the streets.
Like, what do you mean? What would you want them to see the money spent for?
So we actually have a couple of conclusions in the report about what cities can do instead of putting money. There are a couple of programs that are actually really doing a good job. One of them is in Utah in terms of route number housing and those type of programs. There are different other types of programs. But the idea is to help the people on the streets with what they have to do on the streets because they have no homes, as opposed to putting them in the criminal justice system, which means that they are then going to have a criminal record. It's going to make them more difficult in terms of education, in terms of housing, in terms of jobs. I mean, there are so many jobs that actually require that you don't have a criminal background, and so they knock you out immediately by having the criminal background. So we are keeping people in the perpetuation of the poverty cycle by criminalizing them.
What would you say to people, because we get emails and things from people a lot saying, why can't the police go in and arrest? We see the homeless people, they're camping here, they're leaving trash, they're urinating in public, and they want the police to go arrest them and stuff. I mean, what would you say to those people?
I think that's intolerance, and the problem is that we don't have 24-hour restrooms in Denver. We have, I think, 1. So the problem is that we don't provide services. Instead, we put that money into criminalization. And so if we had 24-hour restrooms, then I think business owners and the like wouldn't have the same problems. And it's just a refocusing of the resources that the city needs to reevaluate.
Right, I mean, and I'm trying to think, what about, for instance, again, there might be some businesses who would say, you know, we don't want more homeless people here. We don't want to make it easier for them here because it's, you know, there are other business impact kind of statements. What would you say to people like that?
I would say that the policies of our state need to be aligned with what our values are, which is that we take care of people, we don't criminalize them. And so if we provided the right services, then there wouldn't be the same problems. And so there are people that are unhoused, they therefore live in public, and we need to provide the type of services that are going to help them, not criminalize them.
Okay. Anything I haven't asked that you would want to say or add?
I would say that the University of Denver has really supported this project, and that the students have actually dedicated above and beyond the time that they were given in terms of credit. And it's really important to do this sort of public interest work for law students and lawyers across the state.
You know? Okay, that's perfect. And you guys obviously support then the bill making its way through the
We
legislature,
do
correct?
support the bill making its way through the
All right,
legislature.
Professor, thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
First off, were any of your findings surprising? What surprised you?
I think what surprised us the most was probably the breadth of the ordinances that criminalize homelessness. It wasn't just one or two types. We found dozens of behaviors that were criminalized. And I think that was surprising. I think that the fact that every city we looked at had some sort of ordinance that criminalized homelessness, I think that was surprising. We figured we'd find some Denver, Boulder, the cities that you can think of. But the fact that we looked at 76 cities and found 351 ordinances, that surprised us. It also surprised us, I think, in terms of the open records request data that we received. The cities are not doing a very good job of keeping data to understand the breadth of this problem. And so they don't keep, there's not a very good transparent government processes going on. Not very many cities were able to say, here's the number of citations that were given to homeless people specifically. They weren't able to say, some of the questions that we asked, they just weren't able to answer. So I think we need better government transparency on some of these issues. That was surprising to us at all. And of course, the end number was surprising. That just 6 cities and 14 ordinances over a 5-year period found over $5 million.
And what would you say to responses like the reporter that asked you before, which is talking in behalf of businesses, saying we can't have them here? You just mentioned that every city has these ordinances, so they can't.
Anywhere you go, anywhere a homeless person goes, they are a criminal in that city because of these ordinances, and that's wrong. It's morally wrong, and the cities need to reevaluate their strategies.
Now, if the data is incomplete, which is pretty typical with homeless issues, incomplete, non-existing, not well managed, what would you recommend as far as a solution to that, or is that not part of this study?
No, I think that one of our conclusions is that the cities need to do a better job of data collection and keeping records that actually, therefore, they can take a look at how many of their citations are given to homeless people, and then how many of those result in jail time based on a failure to appear or failure to pay. And so we had to do a lot of that digging ourselves, and thankfully Denver was one of those that did have some of that data, so we spent a lot of time crunching that data, but other cities didn't have it, and they really should.
And one last question. Compare the criminalization of the amount of enforcement of ordinances that are designed to criminalize homeless with the amount of enforcement that goes for other kinds of petty offenses. Did you guys collect any?
We did not look at that.
Okay.
We did not look at that.
Yeah, just trying to get an idea for the
Sure.
enthusiasm
Good question,
for.
but yeah, no, we didn't.
Right.
We were limited in our time and resources, and we spent it focused on those ordinances that we identified as criminal.
So how many hours do you guys think you spend as a team?
As a team, we started. I started in the beginning of the summer. My students started in August. We've been working. I would say 11 students. 20 hours a week since the beginning of August. So that's a dozen people. So it's quite a number of hours, and we're quite proud of the work that we did.
Alrighty, well, thank you.
Thank you.